And welcome to the Cult Cinema Circle podcast. My name is Jesse, and I'll be your host. Now, on today's episode, we are going to head over to the one, the only Jurassic Park. That's right. I don't have anything fun or clever to say about this because today we're going to be covering this goddamn movie, Jurassic Park, from 1993. Now, I couldn't do this alone, though, because this movie, is it a cult classic? Some may argue no. I argue maybe, kinda, but I wanted to cover it anyway, because why? This is my show and I can do what I want. But I couldn't do this alone, though. I had to bring in a guest with me, and a guest who has way more knowledge about this movie than I do, technically, and who I just thought would be a fun addition to the Cult Cinema Circle podcast family. So, she's a wife, she's a mother, she is a beauty consultant and a, esthetician, okay? And she's been mentioned on the podcast a little bit before. Please welcome to the podcast, Barb or Barbie Stender. Barb, How are you doing today?
I am wonderful. How are you?
I love that. I'm doing great. So a little bit about Barbie and me. So Barbie is, if you've ever listened to the podcast, she is one of my sister's best friends who's been on the podcast. But I actually predate my sister a little bit with Barbie because we actually went to high school together. Isn't that right?
We did. What class did we have together?
We had an astronomy class or something like that.
And something to do with plants, right?
Botany or whatever. Right?
Botany, yes.
Some shit.
Yes.
Anyway, we went to high school together. You're a year older than I am. So, but you were doing like dual enrollment or something where you were like half school, half work or something.
Yes.
So I just remember like, oh, okay, like there's this girl in my class or whatever. Then about a year later, my sister said, oh, there's this girl I met at my new job and her name's Barbie. And like, she's really cool. She's going to come hang out. And I was like, Sarah, I think I know her because I think we went to school together. Yes. And lo and behold, you came to our house and I was like, oh, hi, I think I was in a class of yours.
Yep. And I just never left.
Right, like seriously, actually.
No, but literally.
Literally, like, because at the point, you were looking for a place to live and stay around. You and Sarah got really close together. And, like, we were just like, well, girl, like, we have some space. Like, if you want to just move in with us, because we do that. And literally you never left. Like, and It's so cool. Like, you literally moved with me and my family back into Baltimore, and then had your own life. You have your own damn husband and 2 children.
Yeah, I do.
Like, you're a goddamn adult, Barbie. Like, what the hell?
I know.
But I didn't go, but like my sister and my mom went to your wedding. We take care of your kids sometimes.
They were just there.
They were just here. So yeah, So Barbie, needless to say, is a part of the family, even though she's not blood family. But
you guys are definitely my family.
Of course. But yeah, and Barbie's been an avid supporter of the podcast since I've started it, which I love.
I listen to every episode.
Thanks, girl. Hopefully I've turned you on some weird movies. I don't know.
You have.
But anyway, I also love how your daughter is literally a little horror fan in training, and I love that so much.
Yes, she is a horror fan in training, and she is a big fan of your podcast as well. She's asked if she could listen to your podcast, and
you can
adult supervision.
Maybe, because I do swear a lot. Hey,
that's okay. We are pro cursing.
I know, right? Listen, they're gonna learn it one or another, but
that's right.
Yeah. I just think it's so fun. And yeah, when she gets to be a little older and she can watch horror movies, you can bring her to Uncle Jesse. I'll tell her a little something. Anyway, you actually brought this movie to my attention. Not that I didn't know what Jurassic Park was, but in this situation, you were like, would you cover it on the pod? And I was like, you know what? Damn it. Yes, I will. And anytime I bring a guest on, I always want them to make sure that whatever movie they're going to cover is a movie that they love, because I'm not the expert. You are to me. And so, that's what I think of in that sense. But Barbie, what is your history with this movie? Like, when did you first see it? What is it about this movie that you really love? And then I'll tell you a little bit about like kind of mine or lack thereof, but I'd love to hear about that.
So I don't really remember the first time I watched this movie. I just remember era Crumple household, starting to watch it, and I just became addicted to it. And your mom actually bought me like the 1, 2, and 3 pack of the Jurassic series. And I just became addicted to it. I mean, I have it on my phone. I was watching it constantly. It's very quotable to me. I know the movie like the back of my hand. I got my kids into it. It's just really fun to picture yourself in this fantasy of what would happen if you had dinosaurs back in your life again. And I guess it just makes it fun for a minute of like, shit, what could happen? And then, no, we do not want this to happen. So I don't know. I just love this movie. It's good. I wouldn't say it's a feel-good movie because it's definitely not, but the score on it is perfect. Every scene matches to a T. They knew what they were doing, and I just like the movie so much.
Love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And I think that's the best thing about some of these films is that it really is a kind of comfort for you. You just watch it a bunch. And it's interesting because I know that on this pod, and then also I think in sometimes your own life and Sarah's life too, you guys have those movies that are these quote like girl movies, teen movies, whatever. And so it's fun that like, yes, you can have something like Legally Blonde or Romy Michelle that is love, of course. But then you have something like Jurassic Park where you're like, fuck, I like that movie. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that. And I think that's exactly what I'd want to cover on the show is these movies that hold a certain place in your heart. I also didn't know my mom bought you the 3 movies. That's nice.
She did.
Proud of her.
I know. It was a very nice gift. I mean,
look at that.
Sarah may have bought it for me, so shout out to Sarah. But one of you guys bought it for me, and I treasure it dearly.
I love that. So my history, I guess, if anything, with this movie is I don't have a history with it. Somehow, some way, I went my whole life without really watching this movie ever. If I had watched part of it, it was like, I don't remember it if I did. But yeah, but I recently watched it over this past weekend, but I did watch it and I loved it. It was great.
Good.
This is a movie that is so many different things. It's an action adventure, I guess. It's also a kind of sci-fi if you want to take it there.
You could.
And also, a horror because dinosaurs are horrifying.
They are.
Scary and peril. So that's just so interesting to me how that comes all to be. But but that's my history is I literally didn't have a history and I'd like to have a history with these movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
And don't worry, we'll talk about it because we'll talk about the series a little bit. I'm sure you have thoughts about that.
Oh, I have my thoughts. Trash. But anyway. back to your topic on it being a little bit of a scary movie. It it's funny because it's Steven Spielberg and he did what was it, Jaws? And for so many people, Jaws was terrifying, ruined swimming in the ocean for so many people.
Right.
And to me, I saw that movie. I fell asleep several times. I've tried to watch that movie and I fall asleep. It's boring.
Right.
But sharks mean nothing to me. But perfect example, my husband is terrified of going in the ocean, bodies of water, in fear and oceans. And that's why that movie. So what for some people, what that movie did for them is what some, Jurassic Park with dinosaurs did to their fear of this new creature that's not here, but potentially could be. I mean, if you think about the science behind it, what if they really did bring dinosaurs back? No,
totally. That makes total sense. Like, don't throw any hate to Barbie about Jaws or anything if you're a lover. I haven't seen that movie in forever, so I don't even know what to think about it, but I'm sure it's slow a little bit or whatever. I still am, the whole thing with, what is it? Poltergeist for me, because technically it's a Tobe Hooper movie, but everyone wants to talk about how, Steven Spielberg, like, actually was directing it or whatever the fuck.
Really?
And I was like, yeah, okay. Yeah, there's the whole thing of, like, it's actually a Tobe Hooper movie who's the guy who did Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original one. He actually directed it, but then there's so many people who say, Steven Spielberg actually directed this because blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, yeah, whatever. He's just like a producer on it. Like,
interesting.
Whatever.
Well,
I love Poltergeist, but
Poltergeist and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, scared the bejesus out of me. So they are really good. And adding to that, Steven Spielberg was attached to the second Jurassic Park and the third, and he's even accredited on the Netflix. It's like a kid show, but he's accredited to that too. So it's just kind of funny that you say that with the scary movies too.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Fun little fact.
As we go on with the show or whatever, we'll go into some figures of the movie, quotes about the movie from critics, and a little bit about the production history. I'm sure you have some stuff to share. So Jurassic Park was written by Michael Crichton and David Koepp, who did the screenplay, and Michael Crichton was the actual author of the book. It was directed by Steven Spielberg, as you said, produced by Kathleen Kennedy and Gerald R. Molin. This was released June 11th, 1993, so you'll be hearing this in a couple days from now that'll be the release date. So that's cool. $63 million budget, about estimated. And, well, let's see. Box office of gross in US, Canada is $404,214,720 with a gross worldwide of $1,908,002 321 or whatever the hell that is.
That's a lot of numbers.
Made $1 billion. Yeah, a lot of numbers. This movie made $1 billion. So needless to say, this movie did very well when it came out.
Absolutely.
And did financially well as well.
They've re-released it a couple times as well, too.
It did, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that also skews it, but whatever. 91% on Rotten Tomatoes for both Tomato Meter and audience score, so that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And we have an 8.2 out of 10 on IMDb and a Letterboxd score of 4.1 out of 5.
Very nice.
So, yes. Cast the characters. We have Sam Neill as Dr. Alan Grant, Laura Dern as Dr. Ellie Sattler, Jeff Goldblum as Dr. Ian Malcolm, Richard Attenborough as Dr. John Hammond, Bob Peck as Robert Muldoon, Martin Ferrero as Donald Gennaro. He might be another scientist or some guy. B.D. Wong as Dr. Henry Wu, who is one of the scientists.
Yes.
You have Joseph Mazzello and Ariana Richards as Tim and Lex Murphy, the grandchildren of Richard Attenborough. Samuel L. Jackson as Ray Arnold. Wayne Knight as Dennis Nedry, the villain of the piece. Jerry Mullen as Dr. Harding, another scientist dude. Miguel Sandoval as Juanito Rostagno, who I think is one of the guys in the Dominican Republic or wherever.
In the beginning, yeah.
Yeah. Cameron Thor as Dr. Lewis Dodgson, another scientist dude. Volunteer Boy, who's in the beginning. He's Whit Hertford. I'll get to him. And then the voice of Mr. DNA from the little video is Greg Birdson. So we have that. That's our cast. We'll talk about them, I'm sure. Some critical response quotes. So we got Terrence Rafferty from The New Yorker, who says, for all the ingenuity of the movie's engineering, Jurassic Park doesn't have the imagination or the courage to take us to any place we haven't been 1,000 times before. It's just a creature feature on amphetamines. We then have Kenneth Turan from the Los Angeles Times, who states, do the dinosaurs work? Indeed they do. Does anything else? Not really. And then we have David Anson from Newsweek, who states Jurassic Park doesn't have organic flow. It can't disguise its clunky B-movie soul. So I always like reading the negative reviews because I'm like, I wonder how many I can get. And it's also just fun to read negative things sometimes.
Of course.
Anyway, so before we move into any kind, exactly. But anyway, before we move into any kind of plot summary about Jurassic Park, I want to talk a little bit about how this movie exactly came to be and all of that. So Barbie, to start off, do you have any particular information about how this movie came to be or it got developed or anything like that before I go into my stuff?
I don't have too much. Obviously, it was a book. You mentioned the author.
Yes,
I did read the book a while back. I'm reading the second one now, and they definitely mixed the second one into the first one. There's a lot of changes, obviously, but the book was really good. They kept it true for the most part. And that's all I really know about the production history.
Right. Anything that you don't already know, and you'll probably have some other little notes.
I'll have some little facts for later, but nothing about as far as them making the actual movie. I would love to see an episode of the movies that made us. I would love to see this on there. I would love that too. Yeah. I would love it too. It'd be great. That's a great series. I've also talked about them on Nightmare Before Christmas. Yeah. They also have one about, I think, Nightmare on Elm Street. I think they have a couple of them like that. They do. Yep.
Great thing on Netflix. Go watch it. It's really fun.
It is.
And it's better than, it has that annoying kind of like, people criticized it. It's like the annoying, like, voiceover or whatever, but I actually think the movies that made us work instead of something like The Toys That Made Us or other things like that. You just have to get used to it, get over it. But anyway, Michael Crichton, he originally conceived the screenplay about a graduate student who recreates a dinosaur, and he continued to wrestle with his fascination with dinosaurs and cloning before he ultimately wrote the novel of Jurassic Park. But he wrote this. So Steven Spielberg learned about the novel in about October of 1989. Sarah was a month old, and while he was discussing discussing a screenplay with Crichton that eventually would end up becoming a television show called ER. So Michael Crichton also kind of helped do that a little bit. Spielberg, he recognized what really fascinated him about this story of Jurassic Park. It's a really credible look at how dinosaurs might someday be brought back alongside modern mankind, going beyond just a simple monster movie. So before the book was published, Crichton actually demanded a non-negotiable fee of $1.5 million for the film rights. Smart. And a substantial percentage of the gross of the movie. So Warner Brothers and some other folks as well bid for the rights of this movie, but Universal Studios ended up getting them in 1990 from Spielberg. And after they completed Hook, Spielberg wanted to do Schindler's List, but they gave the green light to Schindler's List, though, on the condition that Spielberg make this movie first, though. And he later said that choosing a creature-featured thriller, he wanted to try and make a good sequel to Jaws on land. So he kind of maybe looked at it like that. This will be kind of like a little bit of a sequel to Jaws, which, I mean, I guess you could kind of say...
He wanted to scare people.
Yes, exactly. Right. He also cited Godzilla as an inspiration for Jurassic Park as well.
I can see that.
Sure. I haven't really watched Godzilla all the way through. I do want to. I mean, it's a classic, like, of course.
Definitely.
Kaiju and all that. Specifically, Godzilla King of the Monsters, which was in 1956, which he grew up watching, which I think might be the weird American cut of this movie or whatever. Anyway, but he described Godzilla as the most masterful of all the dinosaur movies because it made him and the viewer believe that it was really happening. Let's see. To create the dinosaurs, he thought of hiring Bob Gurr, who had done King Kong for the King Kong Encounter at Universal Studios, but he felt like real-life sized dinosaurs would be too expensive and not convincing. So instead, he brought on our boy Stan Winston, horror extraordinaire. He's done all sorts of... he's passed away now, but his son's still alive. But he is all the special effects in a bunch of horror movies. Stan Winston's the man.
Very cool.
So he did the animatronics for those. Phil Tippett, who is credited as dinosaur supervisor. He did the Go Motion dinosaurs for long shots. And a bunch of other people were brought on to do this. They had a paleontologist, Jack Horner, who supervised the designs to actually show that these were real dinosaurs and to make them as lifelike and real as possible, or true to the actual anatomy of a particular dinosaur.
Love that.
Not going to go too deep into this for the most part. I mean, pretty much they greenlit this movie. They were like, let's get some good fucking people to like come in and make these dinosaurs seem real. Great, wonderful, great. Universal paid, when it comes to writing this movie, they paid Michael Crichton a further $500,000 to adapt his own novel. So they had that. So apparently he noted that because the book was fairly long, his script had about 10 to 20% of the novel's content, which is funny because you say like they do change around some of the stuff anyway in this movie. Scenes were dropped for budgetary and practical reasons, and the violence was toned down a little bit because at the end of the day, I think this ends up being PG-13, isn't it? Or
yes. One of the main characters too, he dies in the book and he lives in the movie. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Fun facts.
We'll get to that later.
Gotcha. He wanted another writer to rework the script, though, so they did recommend David Koepp, who he actually co-wrote Death Becomes Her, which I still not have seen, but I probably need to watch it.
Either. We should watch it together.
I know, we really should. Koepp started afresh from this draft that they made, and then they used Spielberg's idea of a cartoon shown to visitors to remove a lot of the exposition from the novel. So, like, that's why the literal DNA tells us all about how these dinosaurs came to life again. While Koepp tried to, he tried to avoid excessive character detail, couldn't care less. He tried to flesh out the characters, though, and make for a more colorful cast, with moments like Malcolm flirting with Sattler, making Grant jealous because he doesn't realize that Grant and him are in a relationship. Like, right. Malcolm doesn't know that. Some characterizations were changed. So Hammond went from being a businessman to a kindly old man because, Spielberg identified with Hammond's obsession with showmanship. He also switched, as you already have told me, he switched the roles of Tim and Lex in the book. So Tim is aged 11 and interested in computers, and Lex is only about 7 or 8 interested in sports. So they literally kind of switched it up. Lex in the movie is the computer nerd, and then Tim is just like, he's interested in dinosaurs, really. He's more so that.
Yep.
Yeah. So he did this because he wanted to work with the younger Joseph Mazzello, and it also allowed him to introduce the subplot on Lexi's crush on Grant, which you kind of see throughout this whole movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, 2 scenes from the book were ultimately excised. There's an opening sequence with, I guess, a dinosaur attacking a young child as he found it. He found it too horrific, so apparently it's in the book.
Yes, so that's actually, you're right. That's actually the opening scene for the second movie. Yeah, that scene that you just talked about is the opening scene for the second movie.
Gotcha. And then for budgetary reasons, they also cut out the T-Rex chasing Grant and the children down a river before being tranquilized by Muldoon. And then both parts were included in the film sequels, as you just said. So Spielberg suggested adding the scene where the T-Rex pursues a Jeep, which at first only had the characters driving away after hearing the footsteps of that as well. So that's how the writing came to be. A little bit about the casting, I guess. So William Hurt almost got the role of Grant, but then that ended up not working out. Also, Harrison Ford was offered the role, but he didn't take it either. Before our boy Sam Neill came in, and he was cast 3 or 4 weeks before filming started.
Wow.
And it all happened so quick. He hadn't read the book, knew nothing about it. He hadn't heard anything about it. And then he's working with Spielberg, is literally his words.
He's a lucky guy.
He is. Sam Neill, for our people out there, I know him from being in Event Horizon. That's a really fucking weird movie, Barbie. You should watch it.
Okay.
It's in space, Hellraiser in space. That's not actually Hellraiser in space, but it's weird. It's very weird, but it's really
weird.
Good.
Yeah.
It has Lawrence Fishburne in it. It has Sam Neill in it. A couple different people. It's good. And then he's also in Possession, which is a really weird movie from the 80s, where he's in Berlin and his wife and him are like going through like a breakup kind of their marriage. It's a whole thing. I'm not getting into it, but it's on Shudder now, so you can watch it and whatever, but it's fucking crazy. Anyway, Jeff Goldblum ended up being Ian Malcolm, but Jim Carrey also auditioned for the role apparently too.
Really?
He was great. He did. He was great, but I think that the casting director more so liked the idea of Jeff Goldblum as opposed to Jim Carrey.
Good choice on their part.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Jeff Goldblum, daddy extraordinaire. Love him.
Absolutely.
Love him. He was also in The Fly, so he turned into a fly. And Gina Davis,
never seen it.
It's a horror movie, but hey, it's pre Jurassic Park, and it's a very tragic story, I would say, because again, he literally turns into a fly, but it ain't cute. It's yeah, it's not. It ain't cute. Let me tell you that. As Spielberg is to do, he had a first choice for who was going to play Ellie Sattler, and that's right, fucking Laura Dern. That's right. Hell yeah, I love Laura Dern.
Me too.
Robin Wright and a woman by the name of Juliette Binoche they turned down the role, and apparently Gwyneth Paltrow and Helen Hunt also auditioned for the role of Ellie, but they made the right choice. Loved it.
Yeah,
loved it. I mean, Laura Dern. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I could see Helen Hunt being her character.
Sure, yeah,
but definitely not Gwyneth Paltrow. No.
Oh, not Gwyneth Paltrow.
No.
Oh no. Believe you me, what did you say? You were going to make fun of her stupid like court get up or whatever?
Yes.
God. Anyway, Jesus. Of course, I had my sister texting me asking if we're doing the pod. Of course. But anyway, so we have that. Hey, girl. I might keep that in actually. But anyway, so yeah, but Laura Dern, for those who don't know, she's the daughter of Bruce Dern, and then I think another famous person. I don't remember.
She's a bad bitch.
She's a bad bitch, though. I mean, she is in Blue Velvet. Great movie if you haven't seen it. It's a David Lynch movie, so it's fucking weird, but it's a good movie. And Kyle MacLachlan from Showgirls is in there too. He's great.
Okay,
and Twin Peaks. Yeah, no, it's so good. And also the lesbian who came out on Ellen, kind of, sort of, and she also had her career affected for that. You know,
true.
She's fucking iconic. I love her.
Didn't she play in Big Little Lies too?
She did. I think she's in the marriage. She's a Marriage Story, all that stuff. She's such a bad bitch. Yes, there's our Laura Dern minute, because you need a Laura Dern minute.
You need a whole 2 minutes for her.
2 minutes for her. She's great. So Dennis in this movie, Wayne Knight, he was actually cast because Spielberg really liked his performance in Basic Instinct, which is fun.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, okay. He's also apparently he's a guy in Dirty Dancing. Sarah told me that as well.
That's right, he is. See, I know him for Seinfeld. I mean,
oh, okay, yeah.
It's just great in Seinfeld.
So Ariana Richards,
Newman.
so yes, exactly. So Ariana Richards, who's with Lex, she was called to a casting office. They just wanted her to scream, apparently, and apparently they thought that was really great. Spielberg said that Steven, so he had watched a few girls on tape that day, and she was the only one who ended up waking up his wife on the couch to make sure that the kids were good. So it was that compelling enough that they were like, oh yeah, she's great. Also, apparently, according to my notes, Christina Ricci auditioned for that role too. Okay. I wouldn't have been mad at it.
I wouldn't have been mad at it either.
I also told you this. I said I wouldn't, although she would have been a little itty bit young. She would have been more the age of Tim, but I would have loved a Kirsten Dunst in here too. But she was too busy. She was too busy being in an interview with a vampire, so it's fine. Yeah, but he had so Joseph Bazzello, he had screen tested for Hook, but he was too young. So Spielberg promised him that he would work together on another film, and that's how that happened.
All right.
Yeah, and then Sean Connery was considered for Hammond's role, but Richard Attenborough, yeah, it wouldn't have worked. And this was his first role in about 13 years that Richard Attenborough had, so that's kind of cool. Okay. He's now passed away, unfortunately. We all know that, but yeah. But yeah, a little bit of all that. But yeah, and then so that's a little bit about casting. Filming of the movie, they took place in 1992. It was shot in some parts of Hawaii to get that kind of like, I guess, island, because it's supposed to be an island of dinosaurs. Right. Dominican Republic and Costa Rica are considered as locations, given that they're actually the novel setting. They had some concerns over infrastructure and accessibility, so they needed to find some other place. So that's why Isla Nublar is pretty much a Hawaiian island. And then, of course, a hurricane decided to also pass directly over this island, which cost a day of shooting, and also apparently cost them how we actually find out how Samuel L. Jackson dies. Apparently. So that happened. Anyway, but yeah, so a lot of this, again, was just done in Hawaii, which I'm actually really surprised by that. I did not know that at all. But then they moved to California to shoot the Raptors in the kitchen, so they used that at Universal Studios. And of course they did also, I think they did some of the Montana dig scenes. I think they did those in California as well. Okay. Of course, you need a desert and all of that. So pretty much done on Hawaii to get the island feel. They shot some of it in California at Universal Studios, and then I think they shot some of it as well to get some of the desert stuff in the beginning. Because really, it's mainly the park, and then before they go to the park, and that's about it, I guess. Yeah. So, yeah. But yeah, so of course they had brought dinosaurs on screen. So despite the title of the film referencing the Jurassic period, there's only 2 of the dinosaurs during that period that actually lived in that period, because it's just Jurassic Park. It's about dinosaurs, damn it. So anyway, the other species that were featured did not exist until the Cretaceous period. Brachiosaurus and Dilophosaurus are the only dinosaurs that actually lived during the Jurassic era, which is kind of funny. Yeah. A little fact to know. I know. We're just going over facts at this point.
I love it.
Yeah. But yeah, for the most part, I mean, the big thing is that this came out. They used a whole lot of CGI and obviously animatronics, kind of a mix of the two to get the look that they wanted, of course. I don't have much about the release of this movie. Obviously, the movie made a gazillion dollars. And so that obviously probably really put into motion a sequel and a franchise and all of this.
Oh, yeah. Now it's a cult.
Oh, now it's a cult, literally. So, I mean, the thing is that when we talk about cult classics, there's plenty of people who are like, well, is Star Wars a cult classic? And I'm like, certain things of it are, I think. Yeah. But am I going to cover Star Wars? Probably not. But but partly, or Harry Potter. Like, maybe the first movie is because we didn't really know what the movie was going to be. We knew the books were really good,
right?
But we didn't know how the movie would be, and then it ended up being a fucking huge thing. So yeah. But do you have any particular other information that you want to share? Not necessarily production history or anything like that, but anything you want to share about this before we kind of move into any kind of other plot or whatever?
I do actually. So if you'll notice, I love Easter eggs. I think that they're great in the movies. And with the first three before they did Jurassic World, there's a couple Easter eggs. And one I loved was that the female character, like Dr. Sattler, she's wearing a button up and typically like khaki shorts. The same character wears that button up in every single movie, even in the Jurassic World series, which is so fun. They always reference like a bag, whether it be like a fanny pack or a book bag or some type of bag. There's always a bag. You'll get that too. There was a couple other things I remember just watching the series over, but it's just fun when they put those little Easter eggs in. I don't like the Jurassic World series. I will put that out there. The first one was fun, but it's just, you can't, and you've referenced this in your previous podcast, they just need to know when to stop, and they never do. And I think that the Jurassic World series, that first one was okay. It was fun to just like go back in time, and this is a newer version. And then they just kept going with it and going. It's just not the same, and they don't know when to stop. So they
just released one, didn't they?
Yeah, and it was awful. And they tried to bring back the characters, and they so could have went a different direction with it. It could have been a lot of fun. They should have brought back the kids from the first one, but they didn't, and it just was unfortunate. They could have done so much more, but I don't make movies. What do I know? So.
Right. We were just like, I'm just some chick talking on a podcast or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, but I know it's totally true. I mean, like, yeah, it doesn't make. I think it's funny that you said that I've said that before, because I don't remember saying it, but I'm sure I kind of have, because sometimes they don't.
They don't.
I mean, like, why did they make 2 more Carrie remakes? Why?
Right.
Even though, don't worry, I'm going to cover those I covered Carrie already. I might cover the sequel, the weird sequel that they had. And who knows? I may have already been on a podcast talking about Carrie. Who knows?
What?
Anyway, right. If that has come out now, then please go find that episode I'm on about Carrie. But anyway, so shout out Spectre Cinema Club. But anyway, but like, no, but you're right. Or like, why did they make the Rocky Horror remake? Why did that happen on Fox?
Why?
They didn't need to. So needless to say, I mean, all of these are on Peacock that I know of. If you have a Peacock premium subscription, which I watched the first one.
I do not. I have one on my phone.
Yes, that's fine. I also think, like, because I might watch the first 3 just to kind of say I did it. And then apparently, I mean, these are already spoilers, but I love BD Wong. He's gay. He's Asian. He's a husband. I think he's awesome. Like, he seems really cool. The fact that he is in the first movie and then apparently comes back as a villain of some kind. I'm like, how did that happen?
He becomes a villain who's, doing some dirty, shady shit. And even in the comic, like the kid show that I was telling you about earlier, he is turned into a different name, but kind of the same storyline. He's just a villain. He's trying to take these dinosaurs and sell them and make them weaponize them, if you will.
Yeah, no, and you're just like, why? How the hell did that happen from some guy who was in the first movie? How'd that happen?
Exactly. He looks so innocent, and his facial expressions are perfect in the movie. And you would have. It's just funny that in Jurassic World, of all the characters they would have brought back, he was the one that they brought back, which was another, in my opinion, was a little Easter egg, because I was like, oh shit, they brought him back. Okay,
right. But then you're like, wait a minute. Yeah, and then you're like, wait a minute. Oh, shit. The only thing I will say is that I do like that I think Judy Greer's in one of these movies.
She is for like a hot second.
Well, you know what? Good for her. She got a paycheck. I'm glad for her.
We love her too.
We love her from Jawbreaker and 13 Going on 30 and all that stuff.
I'm a big Arrested Development fan, so she's
her too. She's kidding.
My favorite. Did you watch that show?
I did not watch Arrested Development. I probably should.
I have all the DVDs.
Okay. I think I can find them streaming too, but don't worry, I might take you up on it.
You can, but it's Mike was telling me that they are like the edited versions. So if you borrow them on my DVD, it's raw.
I love that.
Yes.
Yeah. I haven't covered it yet. And I don't know if we did talk about Juno before on we talked on DM about it. But
yes.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't hate Jason Bateman as a person or anything. I don't know him. But yeah, I hate that character in Juno. So if anything, he might be able to redeem himself for Arrested Development. I don't know. But anyway, so
I think you will forgive him.
Yeah, I'll forgive him, I guess. But yeah, I mean, the legacy of this movie, I mean, pretty much it's known as one of the best, like, action thriller movies. It's, on all sorts of crazy lists and whatever of people just loving it so much. It also led to, apparently, the NBA also decided to adopt the nickname of the Raptors for one of their, like, I don't know, teams or whatever. I didn't know that. I know. It says, the NBA expansion franchise founded in Toronto in 1995 adopted the nickname of the Raptors. And then also apparently during the team's playoff games, they fans would watch the game on a large television in a fan area, which had been nicknamed Jurassic Park. So it's kind of funny with that. And then also this is, in a weird way, also inspired people to like want to be a paleontologist or like, wanting to find out about dinosaurs in their real life.
Absolutely,
which is really super cool. Yeah.
I can't remember if we talked about it, but it inspired a lot of young people, kids, to get into, especially females, to get into dinosaurs. And they say as a parent, when your kids know the dinosaur names, that is showing like high education. Like that's really stimulating for their brain. So this movie did a lot for the younger audience as well.
I think so too, yeah, because I think a lot of kids did watch this when they were young and they really did enjoy it. And then you get to go to, like, if you're lucky enough to go to a place like Universal Studios, you can go and like see shit there from Jurassic Park and you get to like be scared by the dinosaurs and all that kind of fun stuff. So, that's cool too. Like you get to also have that as well for that. But yeah, I think that's everything I can think. So we did touch on the series a little bit because I'm probably not covering the rest of them. I don't know.
Oh no, please don't.
I probably won't. I'll do this one. And I think that's why we wanted to be like, unfortunately the rest of them kind of suck.
I mean, watch the second one, watch the third one. I mean, if you're ever on an airplane and are forced to watch Jurassic World, watch it and get an opinion on it. But
why not?
Don't watch the Jurassic World, the second or the third. They were just garbage.
Yeah.
Garbage.
That's unfortunate.
It is
unfortunate. But yeah, now we're gonna move into, now that we talked about all this stuff and all that, we're gonna move into a plot summary of Jurassic Park.
Okay.
So, funny enough, I normally put these on my phone and I put them in a reminder app to like kind of go through each one. And at some point, this movie is like 2 hours long. And at some point, I was just like, I'm watching this movie. I'm not taking notes on it. So we'll go through as much as we can and all that. But pretty much we start off with obviously Universal Studios opening and all that. And so we see that we have a crew is trying to. So we see that we're at Isla Nublar, which is the aforementioned island where Jurassic Park is. Again, this is a Hawaiian island, really, that it's shot at, but this is supposed to be in Costa Rica / Dominican Republic, I guess. And so a crew is there trying to put a dinosaur into Jurassic Park. So pretty much they have this like steel cage where you don't see the actual dinosaur, but like you see that they're trying to put him into him or her. I guess it'd be a her, whatever.
It's supposed to be a her, yes.
It's supposed to be a her.
Yes.
But we see that they're trying to get them into the park or whatever, but then the dino's not having it though, because it smarts itself, or it's smart enough to realize, here's what I can do to get some of that tasty human meat, right?
Absolutely.
So like that happens, and pretty much what happens is that there's this gentleman who he's one of the workers, and he's one of the Costa Rican workers or whatever, and he ends up in between the dinosaur and like the cage or whatever, and he gets killed by this dinosaur. Much.
It would always bothered me. Why were they not doing this in broad daylight? Like, why did we decide to do this at nighttime?
Yeah.
What do I
mean,
know?
why?
Why? Yeah.
Anyway, so that is how we start off our movie. We already kind of got the intro of Jurassic Park and all that, but this is just setting up that like these dinosaurs especially the carnivorous ones are, not here to play. But because of this, we have the lawyer who's coming, and he comes to the DR. So I think this was supposed to be in Costa Rica, but he ends up coming to the DR or whatever. He comes here because of one of the deaths of the crew, and talking about how like this can't happen, like they want to sue you, all this kind of stuff, blah blah blah. So we get that set up of like, here's who the lawyer is, here's what happened with this death and all of that. I don't think Richard Attenborough has quite showed up quite yet. Hammond, I don't think he's quite shown up, but I will say no, not yet. But we get the idea that like, okay, this lawyer is going to somehow be involved as well. He's talking to some of these folks.
Yep.
But then we move into we're finding some dinosaur bones, because we move from the DR and South America pretty much to we're finding dinosaur bones in Montana. So we see that there's this like sandy desert-y place. I mean, Montana is just kind of like open, I guess. But wherever they have that at, they're finding dinosaur bones in Montana. And this is where we get our intro to, I don't know who the fuck played the lawyer or the guys at the beginning, but we do have our intro to Dr. Grant and Dr. Sattler, played by Sam Neill and Laura Dern, respectively. We see that they're kind of the head honchos of this dig.
And he makes it very clear in the beginning he does not like computers, and that's like important to pay attention to, because he makes it known. He
doesn't like computers, I guess, and he also doesn't like children either.
Yes. They smell, apparently.
They make it a point. But yes, so we end up finding that I guess Dr. Grant is like a paleontologist, and more so Ellie Sattler is a paleobotanist or something like that,
like a vet or something. That's what I gathered. There's a technical term.
She's a vet or a botanist. Exactly. She's something like that, where she has a little bit more of that, and this comes into play later.
Yes, it does.
But we have that, and pretty much we have our volunteer boy. That's his name in the movie.
Oh yes.
He's Whit.
He's about to get schooled.
He's about to get schooled by Dr. Grant. He is also the kid from, oh dear God. So he's this kid. He was also another kid in some other movie, but he's also the kid from The Dream Master for Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, okay.
And he's horrible in that movie. He's not good.
Oh, well, in my opinion, why was a child at a digging exhibition? He was the only child there. Why was he there? I get it. They needed to make it a point that Dr. Grant didn't like kids, but like, why was there a child there when it was all adults? Like,
exactly. I don't understand that either.
What was the significance?
But anyway, so I have no idea. But anyway, so he says that raptors are not scary. Because that's who they're finding, raptor bones or whatever. But he's saying they're not scary. And Dr. Grant reads him. That's what I have in my notes. Because literally he's saying like, imagine this happening. Because obviously Dr. Grant has a love and passion for dinosaurs, I guess. Because he's a paleontologist.
Right.
So he's explaining like, hey, stupid kid, like, all of that, like, these are like terrifying, and how would you like it if this happened to you or whatever. So yeah. And again, this is also, like you were saying, Barb, setting up that he also doesn't like children. So
they kind of foreshadow the event too a little bit too, because he's telling this kid this kid about how terrifying a raptor is, and that comes back to haunt Dr. Grant.
Yeah. So then Grant and Sadler, they're walking up the hill as well, back to their little trailer, I guess, that they have on the site. And also I have in my notes, Dr. Grant hates kids, ? I think we've made that perfectly clear.
We have.
But we then have John Hammond, played by Richard Attenborough himself. He crashes the dig site because he's literally just in the trailer that they've set up.
Yes.
In the refrigerator. Well, I don't know why. He just is. Yep. And he talks to the doctors. He talks to these two people. You have to imagine all of these people had to go through a PhD graduate program to get these titles.
You would think.
You think, man, like just imagine that for your life. But anyway, so he's talking about a park that he's opening up, and I don't think he calls it Jurassic Park quite yet or whatever, but like he's talking about how he has this park in Costa Rica, DR, wherever. And they're like, but here's what happened is like, we had this death happen from, this thing. And so they're on my ass about it. And so I need to have a lawyer with me. We already met.
Yes.
And then we also need other people who can vouch for the validity / safety / whatever of this park.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where you guys come in. And so they decide, I think also because they are offered some money to do so, they decide they agree to come to the park. And you also see a little bit, because again, Laura Dern is an icon, but you also see that like she's also, because this is her man, she is trying to be like, hey, I mean, I know that kid's kind of a dick, but like, you don't want any maybe of your own or whatever, like, because maybe she wants that, you know, so all that kind of stuff.
If I can add a spoiler, they do not end up together in movie 2, 3, and the other world. They don't end up together. She does get her happy ending. She does get kids. You will see that in movie 2. Actually, no, I'm sorry. You see that in movie 3. I apologize.
Love it.
So she does get her child.
I love that for her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. But yeah, so there's that. And then we have our intro to Dennis, who is the villain of this piece.
Yes.
He is a portly man. And he is...
I just love him.
Yeah.
He's a shisty little character. Yes, he is. He's a shisty little character. And jumping to the scene where he meets that guy, you know, who's giving him the money. They open the canister. And I always thought to myself, is that whipped cream? Is it shaving cream? Because he puts it on the pie and you never really know what it is. But he makes that he makes that squeal that was just perfect. And it's like a little pig squeal. And I always wondered, did they tell him to do the pig squeal? Was that real? I don't know. It was just perfect. You could not double that scene if you tried, in my opinion.
Right. Exactly. I got you. All right. So then we have Dennis. So again, as Barbie was saying, like, we have this scene where he is pretty much being paid to infiltrate this park, I guess. We find out later a little bit, but this is them saying, hey, get this information and put it into this this shaving cream like canister we have for you. Here's what you're gonna do. And he's outside eating somewhere, and that's when they're meeting. So then we have that. I think Dennis is a part of them flying to the park because they get on the helicopters or planes or whatever the hell. I think it is Richard Attenborough, Hammond. You have the two doctors. I think Dennis is there because I guess he comes up, or he's already at the park. Maybe
I think he's already at the park. Yeah,
you're right. But then we have my notes. Jeff Goldblum, baby.
Yes, with his little buttons undone already.
Yes, Ian Malcolm, who I think is a mathematician, apparently, from what he has said. I don't remember. But he is also being brought in because science. Yes. Anyway, so they come and they land so you have them flying through the fucking, sky or whatever. And the helicopter lands, and the gang, as I will call them, I guess, get driven to Jurassic Park in these like iconic ass Jeeps that have like the Jurassic Park on the side of it. So yeah, they drive and they get to Jurassic Park, and that's great and wonderful. So when they actually get to the park, and if I'm remembering correctly, they end up there and they're like, okay, well, what's the whole big thing about this place? Like, I don't know, because they have
a pamphlet in their hand and they're like, well, what the fuck? What are we looking at? And even Dr. Ellie is like, what the fuck? And she looks down and he pulls her head up and turns her head, and they're like, literally jaw drop. Okay, there's a fucking dinosaur.
Yeah, there are dinosaurs, and what the fuck did this guy do where he was able to have this happen?
Right. I think they even say that. Like, what has he done? Son of a bitch has done it. That's what he says.
Exactly, really, seriously. And then that is where you get the iconic line, obviously, of Dr. Hammond saying, "Welcome to Jurassic Park." So that's the name of the movie. And
cue the wonderful music.
It's really good. It is. So yeah, this is, and it is a really cool, like when you imagine like in 1993 when this movie came out, I mean, it is pretty fucking cool, and it is supposed to be that kind of like scene of like, here is the scope of this shit, which is really cool.
Definitely.
Anyway, so then we have going to the lab, is what I have in my notes. So after they literally have seen the goddamn like dinosaurs, they're going to the lab, which is over at the visitor center, kind of. So they end up going to the visitor center, which is supposed to be for the people visiting, obviously.
Right.
And so they see, you know, like they have the dinosaur ass bones that you see at like a museum, like you have that. And it's just where the visitor center is. But then in part of this visitor center, you also have the lab, because as part of this lab too, we learn how these dinosaurs have come to be at this point. As part of it, it's kind of like this fucking, I don't know, like Disneyland ass or Disney World ass, like little ride or little thing where we have Mr. DNA or whatever.
It reminded me of Hershey Park, where you take a tour of the chocolate factory.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, actually, no lie. Like, that's pretty much what it is. But they have Mr. DNA, who is explaining all of this, and pretty much what they've done, if I'm not mistaken, or again, I don't remember exactly what this is, but they learn that pretty much what they've done is that they have found these bones. They have extracted mosquito blood. Because mosquitoes were around, and they extracted the blood from the mosquitoes that they found in amber. And they took the blood from them, and then they used that to then like pretty much clone or be able to kind of not test tube baby it, but like independently make these dinosaur eggs, I guess, which then hatch.
Yeah, and then there are some missing pieces to the DNA, yada yada yada,
which they fill in with frog DNA.
Yes, which becomes a problem in later scenes.
Right, exactly. So yeah, that's what we learn about from Mr. DNA, Dr. DNA, whatever the hell that cartoon's called.
Mr. DNA makes it to the second franchise also.
I love that.
Yes, voiced by Jimmy Fallon later on.
Oh, yeah. That's fun. Yeah. I don't know if I like him or not. I think I like Seth Meyers more, but you know, that's just me.
Yeah.
A little on the fence. Okay. I find Jimmy Fallon, I don't know if he's that genuine, I guess. I don't know. Okay, whatever. Okay. But yeah, then we have baby dinosaurs, man. That's what we have. So as I stated before, we learned about how these dinosaurs came to be. But then in the actual lab, where we have some of the people, one of the guys played by B.D. Wong, as I stated, one of the scientists, they're pretty much explaining, like, here's how we have made these dinosaurs so that they just come out and like fucking are living. We see one of them hatching through their egg, and you know, Dr. Hammond's like cheering it on, or like, come on baby, come on, push. Yes it's so cute. But yeah, so, and this is also where we find out from BD Wong himself that they wonder, because I think even Sam Elliott asks, or somebody does, hey, how do you keep them from not breeding? And
yeah, Dr. Ian asks about that. Yep.
Dr. Ian. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, he does. He asks about that. How do you keep them from breeding? And they say, well, what we do is that none of these dinosaurs are men. They're female. Yeah. So that's how we keep them from not breeding. But I say in my notes, Jeff Goldblum talks about how life finds a way.
That's one of my favorite quotes.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's kind of great.
It is.
Also, if you haven't already met him, Samuel L. Jackson comes in here as also one of the other scientists.
Yes.
He also has the wonderful line of hold on to your butts, which I never really knew where that came from, and now I know. But yeah, he's like another computer guy, I think it was, along with Dennis.
Yes, he was a little computer helper, assistant, whatever. But I love in the scene that you're talking about where Dr. Henry was like explaining to them, yeah, they're all girls, and Ian's like, well, how do you know? Do you go and lift their skirts up? And he's just looking at him like, duh, how do you not know this?
Right, exactly. But Dr. Ian does have a point, because we find out later that, again, there's some issues that have popped up.
Yep.
So yeah, we have that. Then we have, in my notes, I have feeding time at Jurassic Park, because I guess this is referring to how they literally put out a lamb or a goat. I think it was a goat.
Yeah.
They put out a goat for these dinosaurs to eat that are carnivorous. Now, do you know if this happens during their tour, or are we on the tour yet?
No, we're not on the tour yet. Dr. Grant found out that they bred raptors. So he's really upset because raptors are very vicious. And then they go over to eat. And they just saw the raptors eating said live animal.
Gotcha.
And then cut scene to a literal nice fancy plate of some type of dead animal.
Exactly right.
And they aren't trying to eat it. They look at the plate and they're like, yeah, we're not hungry.
Yeah, we just saw this animal get eat. I don't know.
Not yet.
Ew. Yeah, but I do say dinner time in my notes. So dinner time is there. So they go back to the visitor center. They have this fancy ass dinner with like, Dr. Hammond and Grant and Sattler and Malcolm and all of them.
They talk, opinions were given, and
yes,
Dr. I'm sorry, what is his name, old man?
Dr. Hammond.
I don't remember him being a doctor in the movie, which is always so weird to me because he doesn't act like a doctor.
I know, right?
But he tries, he gets these opinions from everybody, and he doesn't like what he's hearing, and the only person who's supporting him is the lawyer.
Yes.
So then we get the grandkids are here.
We do. Yes. We have the Dr. Malcolm diatribe. It's just him saying like, what the fuck are you doing? Pretty much like, what in the hell? But we do have the intro to the kids, Lex and Tim, played by Ariana Richards and Joseph Mazzello. So we find out that these are his grandkids, and, they are spending some time with their granddad, which is fine. Cool. Whatever. So they've come there. And then this is when we start the tour, I believe. So they decide, because we also found out in this dinner scene, I believe, that Dr. Grant's goal in this park is to, because the lawyer says something about like, oh yeah, you could like target this towards the rich and like make a lot of money. And even Hammond is like, well, I don't really want to do that. I want to make this accessible for everybody. To be able to do it. So, okay, cool, whatever. That's one of the things they talk about. But you were totally right, Barbie. Like, that's what they talk about at dinner and all that. But we see that we have a tour. So it's like an electronic, it's like a guided tour on a track of these caravans, I guess you'd call them. And so the tour starts. So they each get into their respective caravans. I think it was, and also you find that Tim is really interested in Dr. Grant because he loves dinosaurs. Yeah. So he's really into him and he wants to be anywhere he is, which again shows that like Dr. Grant doesn't like kids, but he's just like, okay, whatever. And you see a little bit, I guess, of Lexi being crushing a little bit. Yeah. She's like a 12 or 13-year-old, obviously. Yeah. And it's Sam Neill. Have you seen those eyes? I did tell you he has the best crazy eyes ever in every movie. It's great.
I love that.
I do. But yeah, so the tour starts. So I don't remember who's in which caravan, but they start the tour. Of course, also...
lawyers and the kids are in one van. Right. And then all the grown-ups, the scientists are in the other.
Rest. Yep. Yeah. So they start their tour. And so then you see that they start off with the Dilophosaurus, I believe, is the first one that they come to.
I thought I read somewhere that they said that the first dinosaur that they're supposed to see, the one that spits out venom, was made up. That was never a real dinosaur. I don't know how true that is, but that was fun.
Who knows? Yeah. But so they have one, but again, it's a no-show because they don't actually see anything.
Nope, nothing.
And then they go on to the next attraction or whatever to see the T-Rex.
Yes.
And they don't show. So there's no T-Rex for whatever reason. So then in this situation,
we did miss the part where they're approaching the actual park and he's like, what do they got in there? King Kong? That was another major icon line for me. I do too. Because they reference King Kong. And like you were saying earlier,
it was an inspiration kind of sort of. It's in there. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we have the gang. They break out of their cars because they're like, okay, this is bullshit. Like, what is with this? Like, there's no dinosaurs. Like, we just saw some, but like, where are they now?
Right.
But then we see that in the terrain or whatever, there is actually a sick Triceratops, I believe it is.
Yeah.
So the Triceratops ate something that is upsetting its tummy and just it's like a general like fucking body. And so we see sick dinosaur and Ellie takes a liking to that or concern to it. And so, she's trying to diagnose pretty much what's going on with this dinosaur, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And this is also where we get the scene of, well, the way that we're able to like figure out what's going on with this is by examining the stool of the dinosaurs. Yes. And so this is where we get, that's a whole pile of dino shit or whatever. That's what Dr. Malcolm says.
Yes, that's a great line.
But she's like, she has her gloves though. Ellie Sattler has her gloves. She's sticking her hand all up in there.
Sticking her hand in some shit.
Sticking her hand in some shit.
Yep.
And whatever, it's fine.
She wants to find out what's wrong with the dinosaur. And that's where
she does.
That's where I thought that she had something to do with being a vet, because she knew all these symptoms. She was telling the doctor who was already on site how to do his job, basically. She's like, yeah, he has dilated eyes. And he goes, oh, well, I'll be darned.
Yeah, or like she knew about like, okay, this person is or this dinosaur is maybe eating this, like how do we tell all this? So
right.
We then find out that Dennis is evil, even though we already kind of knew it anyway.
Yep.
But this is where he's showing how he's actually evil. And what I mean by that is that he's showing this by literally, so this is where we have like Samuel L. Jackson's there as one of the other computer guys, have some other computer guy in there too. And Dr. Hammond's there. And then he has his desk, Dennis does, and it's like really kind of unkempt or whatever the hell. But he makes it a point to distract them of like, hey, I'm going to go this place or whatever. I'm going to go over here and I'll be back or whatever. Like he just kind of says that. But what he really does is he sets up where like pretty much what he does is he disarms a lot of the gates and a lot of the electrified fence, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Because what he's doing is that he is going to go and break into where they keep the embryos or like the whatever the fuck they are. The
files of something.
Yes. The files of what the essence of these dinosaurs are, and he's going to put them into his shaving cream can. So that's what he does, and so he disarms all of this shit because that's part of what his job is. And so then they're kind of wondering, like, well, what the hell's up with Nedry? Like, what's he doing, or whatever? And then it's a little too late at that point because then he literally like made it so that it was kind of like this hacker thing. He hacked into all this and did all of it. And be like, oh, you didn't say the magic word. You didn't say the magic word. And that's just showing like...
And you get a very angry... Yeah, you get a very angry Samuel Jackson. I hate this hacker shit.
I hate this hacker shit, which then comes up later a little bit with our girl Lexi. But then we see... So we're seeing that. We see that Dennis is a dickbag, whatever, all that. But then we get our actual... one of the scary parts of this movie is that the people on the tour are still on the fucking tour because they're like, all right, well, we're going to get back to the cars because we're just going to stay there, I guess, or whatever. But they end up going back to the cars. And I remember, I think it was that they're both in their respective cars. I think Ellie, I don't know where the hell she's at, but
she stayed with the dinosaur. She wanted to stay with this. Yeah. But she wanted to stay with the dinosaur.
Yeah, which everyone else like went back to the cars though.
Yeah.
And then you have little Tim, he has found these like glasses or whatever. He's like looking out like into the rain because now it started raining because it was already going to start raining. But then pretty much what happens is that there's a tropical storm that happens with this. They all leave on a boat. A bunch of them leave for the mainland while the visitors return to their vehicles and all that. So yeah, I'm just looking at the plot summary just to kind of see this. But yeah, so what this is though, because Nedry sabotaged all of this, he cut power to the tour vehicles, so that's why they're stranded. And so pretty much what happens is that the T-Rex decides to show itself, and you see this is where you get the iconic like water, like, you know, the footsteps are so crazy and whatever, you see the water. They
make such a big impact that the size of the Tyrannosaurus Rex makes such an impact that it moves the water, and they're like, well, what the fuck's going on? Because we didn't see any dinosaurs. Yeah. Right. They're like, well, maybe the power's coming back on, and not happening at all. Because the power is gone, but the T-Rex got loose, and she's about to make some fuss.
She is, and she literally like is being a goddamn dinosaur and like overturns one of the vehicles. And literally, I think I messaged you this. So this is like pretty much the T-Rex attack scene where like the T-Rex is attacking the cars. So literally though, this is I texted you this on IG or whatever. But yeah, this is a scary scene because these children who are in the same car together are in peril. They're in total peril because the lawyer left. He is hiding out in a bathroom, I believe. And then what's his name is in the car, and him and Malcolm. Yeah,
he's like, where's he going?
Where's he going?
When you gotta go, you gotta go.
Exactly, right. But Malcolm and Grant are in a car together, and then the kids are in a car by themselves. But then, of course, this T-Rex is like fucking shit up. And so these kids are in fucking peril, dude. And they're trying to, of course, save them. So again, this kind of turns over a bit of a new leaf for Grant, who wants to help save these children, I guess.
Right.
So he is making it a point to like take a flare and like trying to like incapacitate the dinosaur.
Distract him,
or distract him.
Yeah.
And then Ian does the same thing, but he makes an ass out of himself and he runs.
Yes. He gets himself hurt. He doesn't end up, and this is where we find out that Dr. Grant ends up with the kids. And Ian gets, for kind of a couple seconds, you think that he is dead because you don't see him, you don't hear from him, and then you're just kind of focused on the kids and Dr. Grant.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. But then, of course, though, so it injures Malcolm after one of the tour vehicles is overturned. But then the fucking the lawyer, though, the T-Rex like breaks down the bathroom that he's hiding in, which I don't know if he had pants on at that time either. I don't know what the hell that was for.
Even when he went to the Dominican Republic, he was dressed in business attire, but he had like khaki shorts.
He did,
which always bothered me, but I think he's wearing the same outfit in this scene. And I always wondered, was he actually using the bathroom? Was he really like shitting himself on the toilet?
But of course, the T-Rex eats the fuck out of him. And so Grant, Lexi, and Tim, they escape, thankfully. And so then we come back to, while they're escaping, on his way to deliver the embryos to the docks of the island, Nedry gets lost in the rain because he ends up in a car. I guess he found a car to drive himself or whatever. He does, I guess, find one.
He does.
And so he gets lost in the rain, though, as he's driving, and he crashes his Jeep Wrangler that he's in. And then he ends up getting out of it in the rain, and he ends up finding this Dilophosaurus, and he's just like, oh, like, what the fuck? Like, you're so stupid. Like, whatever. He's just being a dick to the dinosaur. But then not realizing that, oh, this is the actual dinosaur that has like the fan that comes out of its head and will like spit venom at you and shit or whatever. And then what ends up happening is that when he gets back into his Jeep Wrangler, he thinks he's in the clear, but a Dilophosaurus is literally in his passenger seat and kills the fuck out of him.
Yep.
And goodbye. So yeah. So that's our second death of the movie.
He's so close to the exit too. I literally have the movie playing like right beside me, and I don't have the volume on, but I'm just watching him. He's so close to the exit, and he tries to pull the
emergency brake.
No. The Jeep. Sorry, really blanked there.
Oh yeah.
He tries to pull the Jeep out of the mud because that's where he gets stuck. He loses his glasses. He's like, "Fuck this! I can afford new glasses." And he's so close, but he's so far away. It's funny watching this, seemingly smart man just act so stupid around this, in the scene, all for money.
He does. No, seriously. And I'm just like, oh, okay, wow, great. And then you fucking die. Good for you.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So then we have Ellie Sattler. She is helping, I guess he's the game warden, Robert Muldoon.
Yes.
I guess is who he is.
Yep.
He's searching for the survivors. So they're searching for them. I think it's now the next day, I guess, because I think it's not, I don't know if it's still raining. I don't remember.
So it's still raining when he goes out and tries to look for the grandkids, gotcha. But you can just chalk it up to the next day. They still can't find their grandkids, and they've got, the adults back at the visitor location, and Dr. Grant is with the kids. Yeah,
totally. And so they're searching for survivors. They only find Malcolm, so they see that he's okay.
Yes.
And of course they have to bring him back to the visitor center, and they have to like have him kind of like almost like ripped up his shirt, showing off his chest and whatever, because he's Jeff Goldblum.
I mean, we love it.
Love it though. But just before, so as Sattler and Muldoon are out searching for survivors, just before the Tyrannosaurus returns and chases them away, so they do come back.
Yeah.
This might also be, I don't know if it's the same scene, but there is a scene where all of these other dinosaurs are. Or no, that's with Grant and all them. We'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
But yeah, no. So we do come back to after we have Muldoon and Sattler doing what they're doing. Mm-hmm. We do see that Grant, Tim, and Lex have walked and they've taken shelter in a treetop.
Yes.
We do see that part where they are able to, again, we are able to take some refuge there. And so as part of this, though, they take shelter here and they encounter a Brachiosaurus herd. And this is where we have Grant who explains because Lexi is like fucking scared as shit.
Oh, naturally.
This whole thing. Naturally. I guess like, I don't know what Tim thinks, but you know, he must think this is really cool. But like Lexi's like, no, I don't like this.
I would portray it as the same thing. I think Tim is like really interested in this, and the girl's like, oh hell no.
No, hell no. But this is where Grant says, like, you know, he also has to spend a bunch of time with these kids, but he explains like, well, Brachiosauruses are not meat eaters, so all they're going to do is just eat grass and leaves and whatever, so you can actually feed them, and you see the scene of them feeding them and all that stuff. It's
so
very
cute.
Nice.
Yes,
it's very nice.
A little family moment.
It is. They later discover later that day, the three of them discover the broken shells of some dinosaur eggs from the following morning.
As he said it, life found a way.
Life found a way. And so this is where we get this scene where with them, because we do spend a fair amount of time with them, the three of them. And Grant in this situation pretty much comes to the realization that the dinosaurs actually have been breeding. Mm-hmm. And this is because their amphibian DNA that they have, which we explained earlier is what they use to kind of parse out the rest of everything.
Yep.
So animals like the West African frogs that they used a little bit of the DNA for can actually change their sex in a single sex environment.
Yes.
So, you know, they can go from male to female. So allowing for the dinosaurs to also do it themselves. So BD Wong, you were wrong.
Yes, you are. Yeah.
And so that is why they've actually been breeding and being able to multiply in a way.
And even Dr. Malcolm says, I hate being wrong.
I know.
I hate being right. I'm sorry.
I hate being right, damn it. I hate being right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, we do see that we're then back into the visitor center and the lab, because what they're not able to do is that because, like I said, Nedry made it where, you know, it's not easy to decipher the code to reactivate the system, which is what his plan was. Hammond and Samuel L. Jackson, Ray Arnold is his name, they end up finding a way to reboot the park system, though. So they have a whole thing where it's literally them three, it's those two, and then Ellie's there, right?
Yes.
And is this the scene where we have pretty much what they have to do is that
you have to reboot the computer system.
They got to reboot the computer system. So they got to shut down the grid. And this is where...
Yeah, it trips the wire. So then you get the next scene of him saying, well, I need to go cut the breakers back on.
Right. And so they retreat to an emergency bunker. So they're doing that. This is where they bring Jeff Goldblum. They bring him in to make sure he's healing. And then Arnold heads to a maintenance shed to complete the rebooting process. So when he fails to return, though, because he dies, unfortunately.
Sorry.
Yeah, Sattler and Muldoon, they end up heading to the shed to try to do this, because then they have to reboot this whole thing.
And I love it because Hamden is like, oh, shouldn't I be going? Because I'm and you're and she's like, we can discuss, we can talk about feminism and gender and saving the world when I come back. Basically, like, I got this. Have a seat.
Yes. But this is Sattler and Muldoon heading out to the shed. So what they discover is that the shutdown has deactivated the remaining fences. And so it's released the velociraptors, because there is a scene, I don't know if it's after this one or before it, where Grant and the kids, they come across these, I don't know what dinosaurs they are, but it's like they're birds almost. Not bird dinosaurs, but like they act as such, and they're running across the field.
Yes, they're flocking.
And they have to yes, they're flocking.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But yeah, so, but it's released the velociraptors though, because of the rest of the fences. So that's not good. And that comes up a little bit later.
Yep.
But yeah, we see that what ends up happening is that Muldoon and Sattler are trying to get this done. So Muldoon distracts the velociraptors to be like, all right, like, Sattler, like, you go and do this, and then I'll keep them distracted. But then that's his demise, because he's attacked by a raptor and dies.
And he even says it. He even says it too. Like early in the movie, he's like, they're smart. They plan. One works it out, and the other one is like the attacker. And they so strategically film that. One attacks. He thinks he's shooting one, and two more come and attack him.
Clever girl.
Yeah, clever girl.
Yeah. So yeah, they have that. So Muldoon distracts the rest of them, and Ellie goes to the shed while she's on radio with the base people, to say, here's what you need to do, pretty much. But yeah, and this is where we also find out that Ray died because of the severed arm. Yeah, happens too.
I love that. She's like, she grabs his hand. I'm so glad to see you. Not.
Yeah. And then we also have the scene where Ellie goes to the shed, and she's told by like, here's what you need to do to go turn everything else on. And then in the meantime, granted, the kids are walking back, trying to get back to Jurassic Park and get to the visitor center. And this is where we have our scene of them having to climb over the electrified fence it's not on right now. So they could do that, technically. So they do that. And so Grant and Lexi make it above, and they make it over. And then Tim is taking his goddamn time. Yes. And in the meantime of this too, we are cutting back and forth between Tim being on the electrified fence while it's off, and then Ellie turning everything back on to try to do this at the same time. And this also results in Tim getting a little bit electrocuted, and he gets
little fried.
Heated.
Yeah. And then he opens, he's conscious again. And he goes, 3.
Yes, exactly. And they give mouth to mouth. And again, this is also, I think, a story of just showing that Grant's heart is softened more by his time used with these kids, which is really nice, which is again maybe why kids like the movie. I don't know. Yeah. But anyway, so Grant, Tim, and Lex, they have come back after, and they reach the visitor center. So Grant is all like, all right, I'm gonna go look for Ellie, my girl, and they leave Lex and Tim to have a little buffet. And so
those kids were hungry.
I know they were, and they had like pudding and stuff. It was really good.
I know. I remember being a child and seeing that, and I'm like, I would totally eat that too.
Yes. But anyway, so yeah, but we had that. And then so but because these raptors are still loose, we see that Tim and Lex, they're pursued by these raptors. And so now they have to try to fucking hide from them. And so they actually end up doing it though. So they're pursued into the kitchen by them. But they do escape.
Scene.
Yes. This is where Lexi uses her smarts to reflect her reflection off of one of the drawers or whatever.
Yeah,
and this makes
stainless
the raptor,
steel.
Yeah.
Kind of tricks it.
So that it knocks into it. And then what they end up doing is they end up locking it into a freezer, and then they join Grant and Sattler, who have now returned. So it's all of them, because Hammond is still around technically, I believe.
He's safe. Yes.
He is safe.
Yeah.
They end up back into the control room, where we have because of course this is happening. So we have the adults out in we have the adults out in trying to like keep these velociraptors like at bay. The fucking Tim kid's not doing anything except being scared. And I'm just like, you couldn't have because there's a gun that's on the ground. You couldn't have handed them that gun to help maybe or whatever. But this is where we get to, we're back in the control room. And again, so the power's back on, but that does not mean that it's safe though. It doesn't mean everything's locked or not. The power's just back on.
They made a comment about the raptor as well. I mean, unless they figured out how to open doors, then they figure out how to open doors.
Yes, they do. But yeah, they reach there, and then what ends up happening is Lex, because we are made aware that she is more of a kind of computer geek. Because again, you said earlier, Grant doesn't like computers.
Yes.
And so, but Lexi does.
Yes,
so
she
she's
does.
able to figure out the hacker code kind of thing. She even calls herself a little bit of a hacker too.
She does. She specifically says to little Timmy, I'm not a nerd, I'm a hacker.
Exactly. But she uses this computer to restore the power. And so she actually, it's funny because you told me, like, you know, we were DMing and literally you say, like, you know, she's actually kind of the hero of the story. And she is, which is so cool. Yeah. So what this does is that, you know, once the power is all back on, everything is armed again. They're now able to call Hammond and say, hey, Hammond, hey, Malcolm, like, we're back on, like, here you go.
They think they're safe, but they're not quite there yet.
Not quite yet. No, yeah, because then you have, they call for help, though, which is fine and great. So now they're like, all right, cool, awesome, right? So then they're trying to escape through the main entrance. But then guess what? Those velociraptors are still on their case. And so they're cornered by the two remaining velociraptors there. But then, so like you see like Ellie, like they're on like the fucking dinosaur bones, like in the front of the visitor center, and they're trying to like, you know,
just escape. Yeah.
But then we see that somehow, some way, we saw like the T-Rex earlier, of course, fuck their shit up, and then eats like one of the other dinosaurs, those flocking dinosaurs. Eats one of them. But then T-Rex, Rexy, whatever you want to call them, comes back and actually like kills these velociraptors.
She saves the day. It's so funny because those are like the most two important dinosaurs in all of the franchise, all of the movies, all six of them, including the cartoon on Netflix. The Velociraptors, they become the star of the show. They get their own highlight in the third movie. I mean, Chris Pratt, barf. He gets a pet raptor in the movie Jurassic World. So it's funny. The raptors are a fun little dinosaur. You're scared of them. But in the Jurassic world, they are trained and they want to weaponize them. It's kind of weird. It's really weird.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We're also going to take a minute because I do this on the Cult Cinema Circle podcast. Yes, Barbie said Chris Pratt, ugh, and I said it too because if you got this far, if you listened, whatever. But yeah, I don't like Chris Pratt. First off, you don't break up with Anna Faris and get away with it. That's number one. And number two, also, you're secretly homophobic, Chris Pratt. Okay, I already see you.
Let me just get on my soapbox really quick. He was a decent actor. Pre like ultra fame. He was okay. Yeah, he was good on Parks and Rec. He was funny. He, you know, had a normal bod, and then he got onto the Disney train. He became an Avenger, and all downhill. He broke up with Anna Faris. He is doing all kinds of homophobic shit, you know, and the whole church thing too. It's just creepy. I don't like it. I don't like him. The fame got to his head. And that's all I have to say about it.
Exactly. There you go. Read him, girl. We call out celebrities on the Cult Cinema Circle podcast where they literally will never listen to it, but I don't give a shit. Anyway, so we then see that, okay, so Rexy saves the day. Great, wonderful. And then we, of course, have the iconic roar of this T-Rex. It's so good. It's
and really the banner falling. It's like iconic. They try to do it in all of the movies.
Very good. Very good. But then we have Hammond who arrives in a Jeep with Malcolm. So they're safe. And pretty much they're like, I do like Grant. He says like, I'm not, this fucking park is not going to
I'm not endorsing your fucking park. And Hammond's like, yeah, me neither.
Yeah, me neither. And then we get a bunch of other movies afterward.
Right.
But it's fine.
So in the book, I will spoil this. Hammond, he decides, you know, his park is a failure. He goes outside. He actually falls off a cliff and then he dies. So,
so they couldn't do that though. So they had to make it a little bit later.
Yeah. And now in the second movie, he dies of like natural old age.
Gotcha.
But you know, said throughout the whole movie, I'm sure you remember hearing it, spared no expense. They also kept that quote in all of the other fucking Jurassic World movies too.
Yeah.
So
They're trying to make fetch happen, and it's just not happening.
It's just not happening. Just stop.
Yeah, I get that.
Where are you getting this money from? Can we just explain that, please?
Yeah, no, they get the money from people who want to watch dinosaurs, which I completely understand. But at the same time, I'm also just like, what the fuck are we doing? Like,
why?
Anyway, but yeah. So they get on a helicopter to then leave for good. And then this is where this is the nice scene where we have like fucking Grant's there, Ellie's there, the kids are there. They're Grant and the kids are kind of all snuggled up together.
They're sleeping on him.
Yeah. And it's nice. And it's just like a nice ending to the movie. And that's the end of Jurassic Park. I think to wrap this all up, because we're going to start wrapping it up now, but I will say, I mean, as somebody who never really watched this as a kid or anything, I really enjoyed myself, and it does make me want to watch at least the first 3 movies, I guess, to kind of get a context.
Good.
And I think if you're a horror fan, I think it's definitely good to watch these at least once, because it's a great, not exactly kaiju, like, large creature, like Godzilla, Mothra, whatever. But I do think it's in the genre, and I think that's really cool. And there's plenty of horror people who love Jurassic Park too. So it surprises me that I don't know if they do cons or whatever. Obviously, some people are a little too famous or quote unquote to do them. But obviously, I think like Ariana Richards and like Joseph Mazzello, right? Like they could definitely do cons and probably make some money doing that. Being like,
Absolutely.
I was the kid from Jurassic Park. Like, you know what I mean? Like something fun like that. But
I always wonder how much money, like, were they set for life kind of after this movie?
I don't know, because acting's weird too, because it's not guaranteed that happens, but do they get some of the money? Like, are they good? Plus, they also, in a funny way too, I think Joseph Mazzello has more of an acting career than Ariana Richards. But yeah, that's really interesting though. I don't think so personally, but who knows?
You never know.
Michael Crichton might be set for life though.
Did he pass recently?
He might have. I think he. Okay. Let's see. Before we kill him, let's make sure he's actually dead. If he isn't, I feel like he probably did actually, though. Hold on just a moment. You are right. He died in 2008.
Oh.
Wow. Okay. Never mind.
He'd been dead.
He'd been dead.
Yeah.
But very, very smart guy. Went to Harvard.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was a doctor technically, but he never actually practiced medicine though. So.
Interesting.
I know, right? But yeah, no, I just think like this movie's really good. Whether it's a cult classic or not, I really could give a fuck less.
That's right.
I do think there is a cult following to this movie of people who love it, who will spend money on it. Right. Like who will. Have you been to Universal Studios? I've never been. I
have not. I just, for me, I love the movie. I love all 3 of them, but I don't want to ruin it with that commercialization of the
capitalism, the consumerism.
Yeah. They just did, again, back to earlier in the podcast, they just did too much with it. They should have left it alone. It could have been something great. They just don't make movies like they used to.
That's true. That's a fair criticism.
That's getting into a whole other podcast we could talk about and just bitch about movies, but
dude, not
even review a movie, just bitch about what has happened to movies. But I don't want to ruin it. I don't need to go on a Raptor roller coaster or look, here's the bad extent is what we did as a family. We went to the Philadelphia museum.
Oh, cute.
And they had like a little, I don't know, they do specials sometimes at the Philadelphia Museum. And this was back in, 2010, right? It was right before I had my son. And we did like a little tour and we stayed up in Philadelphia and it was great. You got to learn different facts and it was really fun, but it wasn't too commercially. And that was it. That's the most I've done with it.
I love that.
I like to keep it like that.
I love that because you also get to like teach your kid about like, here's what dinosaurs are, because I also know that your daughter, being that she's also going to be a horror fan, I'm sure. But like she also went through a time where she really liked Jurassic Park. Yes, I remember this.
Yes, she loved Jurassic Park. would quote the movie, and I just felt like such a proud parent. And when I was prepping for the podcast, I mean, I watched this movie like additionally like 4 times recently in the last 4 days. And she would watch the movie with me, and she loves it. And it just attracts kids, especially that scary scene.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think that there's a reason why there's these children in it, because that's who you care for. And yeah, I think it all works. My good old friend Rob, like I was telling him that I was doing this for my pod or whatever. And he was like, this and T2 are like 2 of my favorite movies. And I was like, yeah, that's fair. Nice. Yeah. It's good. Nice. I give it a 4 out of 5, probably. Like that's what I gave it on Letterboxd. So I'm like, hell yeah, this is great.
That's awesome.
But yeah. But anyway, though, to wrap everything up, Barbie, thank you so much for coming on my pod. I really appreciate it. I'm so happy about it. Do you want to plug anything of yours, like your socials or anything that people can follow you on? If
absolutely.
You want?
So I don't have not a podcast. I don't have an Instagram for any like movie related stuff. But as Jessie stated, I am a esthetician in the state of Maryland, and I have a beauty page. It's Beauty What the Hell Barb. What the hell is a joke, by the way. It should be with Barb. It should be Beauty with Barb, but it's Beauty What the Hell Barb. So Beauty WTH Barb. And I just give skincare advice if I can, and post my schedule if you want to come get a facial, etc. But yeah, find me on there. I'm not gonna let you on my personal page, sorry. But
yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, but I love movies. I just think they're great. I love listening to your podcast, and anytime you want to have me on, just let me know.
Don't you worry. We're gonna try it. You know, I need to work around your schedule being a mom and everything. But you know, I think if anything, I'd love to have you back on for stuff. I mean, Sarah's been on this podcast a billion times. Who knows? It might happen where all 3 of us get together, and that would be so fun. It would be so fun. I mean, we'll have to find a movie to do it.
Right. We'll just record ourselves and just hang out, and that's what this should all be about. Just hanging out. It is, about movies.
Exactly right. Well, don't you worry, because we might. It's been brought up that we might want to do a revisit of a certain movie, maybe.
Okay.
And I'll leave it at that. A little bit of teaser for anybody listening or whatever, but I think we maybe could make that happen, because it's a movie that you and Sarah love. Something I've covered before, so there you go.
Okay.
Anyway, but thank you so much for coming on this podcast, Barbie, and I appreciate it. And have a good rest of your night, okay?
Thank you. You too.
Thanks. As always, if you'd like to get in touch with me, you can do so at cultcinemacircle@gmail.com. If you'd like to give any movie recommendations, give feedback on the show, or if you'd just like to say hey, I'm open to all of it. You can also follow the show on Instagram at cultcinemacircle and on Twitter at cultcinecircle. I tend to announce the movies that I'm going to be covering and just interact with people on there if they want. You can also follow me on Letterboxd at Jessie, Jesse, Kremp, Kremp, all one word. On that platform, I tend to log the movies that I watch. I write little stupid reviews about them and just general foolishness over there. Be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe to the Cult Cinema Circle podcast on your podcatcher of choice, whether that be Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm pretty much on all of them. Be sure to leave 5 stars and a 1 to 2 sentence review about the show so we can grow the audience and then just spread the love all around. Be sure to tune in next week to the Cult Cinema Circle podcast, where I'll be covering 1991's Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. Sue Ellen Crandall is a teenager eagerly awaiting her mother's summer-long absence. While the babysitter looks after her rambunctious younger siblings, Sue Ellen can party and have fun. But then the babysitter abruptly dies, leaving the Crandalls short on cash. Sue Ellen finds a sweet job in fashion by lying about her age and experience on her resume, but when her siblings run wild, she discovers the downside of adulthood. As always, thank you for taking the time to listen to the Cult Cinema Circle podcast, and remember, life finds a way. Take care. Bye.